Welcome back to the Radical Moderate podcast. I am your host, Pat O'Brien, and this is going to be episode 2 with Fayetteville, Arkansas Mayor Molly Rawn. And we kind of left on a cliffhanger. We were right in the middle of talking about this bond issue that, for those that didn't kind of set the table, if you didn't listen last week, you're in your first year as mayor. You've identified lots of needs, but there was a sales tax that had been paying for a previous bond. Mm-hmm. And because of uniqueness or changes really in Arkansas law, you can only go to the voters at certain times. You made the decision that in March of 26, you're going to do this bond issue. And we had gotten into one of the specifics was about an aquatic
center. Yeah.
An aquatic center. And you had made the argument that you're in a region called Northwest Arkansas, and that some of the other cities in the region had that, and you felt like you're losing out telling that argument. And let's just say, a little role play. Let's say that I'm a voter and I'm still not convinced. Give me your best argument. And can the aquatic center be taken out of it? How are people actually going to vote? Explain the process of their auctions.
So I'm going to give you two inches. The first, I'm going to pick back off where we left back up in our time together last time. Being competitive within the region, and also being competitive for our employers. When I talk to, this is what I was saying before, when I talk to people that are hiring young professionals to come here, they are choosing where to live within this region. And let's say they have a daughter or son who is on the swim team at their high school. Let's say it's somebody that is recovering from an injury. And one of the ways that they do their, therapy or their recovery is that they work out in a pool 3 days a week. And that's part of their PT. Or, swimming is just a part of the culture of their family. We can't meet that need adequately in Fayetteville. And so those are the type of things, believe it or not, that people look at and make a decision about when they are choosing where to live. So it isn't, and we know this to be true. It's more than just anecdotal. We have seen data on this. And so the second part of your question is what happens if it sort of the mechanics of how you vote. So when you go and you vote in March, there will be 9 items on the ballot, and you vote on each issue separately. So it's a $320 million, $325 million total bond package, but each individual item. And so what I know that you're going to do, Pat, is you're going to go through and you're going to vote yes for all 9. But you have the ability to vote for each one singly. There is one exception. The very first thing voters will be voting on is the refinancing piece. And that is question 1. And that is the ability to roll over what we still have outstanding on the last bond, because we have paid it off early. It hasn't yet matured. Is rolling that over into this next bond. That's the refinancing question. If the refinancing question does not pass, it does not matter. Everything else, it doesn't matter. It does not matter what is voted on it. You don't have the percentage down ballot.
So with these individual items, are you saying that some of them could pass and get funded, but if there's more than 50 plus 1 no on any particular item, it doesn't pass? It
doesn't pass, and you get less of a and then the bond initiative becomes smaller. Yes, I certainly hope that doesn't happen, because a great deal of time and effort and community input went into figuring out, what are the city's needs right now. And so I certainly think that would be a disappointment. But yes, that is correct.
Well, I think it's interesting. I don't remember voting and having an issue with that much complexity before. I think that's interesting. You're giving the voters more choice. So it's not just, there could be 6 of the 9 things they want to vote for, but they're like, well, I'm going to vote no because the 3 I can't live with. You're saying they could vote on 8 of the 9.
They could vote on 8 of the 9, as long as as long as the one of the 8 that they voted yes for was that refinancing question. And I also want to say it doesn't change what you, the taxpayer, are paying. I mean, if you go keep plugging Sonic. I promise. I mean, I don't think I can ethically take your free drink.
I literally, for the people listening, I am not giving her anything to plug Sonic.
He just has a massive Sonic.
People just love us.
People
what are you going to do?
Well, he has a massive Sonic cup filled with Sonic ice.
There's some subliminal stuff going on.
That he hasn't offered me any of.
Yeah.
And so you are going to pay the same thing at the gas station, at the, car service place, when you go buy a new pair of shoes, if 7 pass or if 9 pass. So it does not lower to only a few of them to pass does not lower your taxes.
Would the bond just get paid off faster?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me say there is a lot going on with this bond issue. So
yeah,
good luck in communicating to the voters, and I'm sure there'll be a campaign. At a minimum, I'd like to have you back maybe after, and whether it passes or not.
After it passes, we're putting that optimism out there.
I'm trying to not get one way or another.
Got to be neutral.
Trying to be, but and I will look at it in a very serious manner, and I think it's interesting that you have those individual choices. But you mentioned something earlier, and it was the word affordable. And I really want to do a deep dive on this.
Okay.
I know that when you ran, part of your platform was that housing wasn't affordable, wasn't enough of it, and just housing was something that you wanted to really bring attention to. You've been in office. What have you learned so far? And then because you talked about trying to listen to people, listen to staff, et cetera. What are you hearing? And what potential solutions are you seeing at the local level in Fayetteville?
Ooh, I'm glad you asked that. So yes, I ran on housing as a platform. I made the case, and I think doubled down on a couple of different videos, maybe even a podcast I was on at the time, about how local governments can absolutely impact change in the area of housing. I'm 10 months in, and I absolutely still believe that. And I'm proud of what we have done this far. Fayetteville is the first city in the state, to the very best of my knowledge, to hire a chief housing officer that works directly with the mayor's office, that is looking at housing all across the board. It's puzzling to me that one of the challenges in talking about housing, Pat, is that it means something different. Like I'm being very, very, very simple and at a very basic level. The words that we use when we talk about it mean something different to everyone, depending upon your background, your demographics, where you are, what job you do. I will tell you what I mean. I met with a group of business leaders on, I believe it was about a week ago, and they were talking about trouble keeping their new talent in Fayetteville and losing them to other areas of Northwest Arkansas, because they said, we just don't have enough affordable homes. If we had more homes at the $300,000 to $350,000 level available, we could keep them here. Now, this was a man that runs a company that employs probably between 300 and 350 people. And he used the word affordable to mean a $300,000 home.
Right.
And he's not wrong in that for the wages that he is paying, there is not enough housing stock. That is the amount, that is the dollar amount that some of his employees can afford. And they're not seeing it in the market, so they're going elsewhere. I was at a meeting 2 days before that, talking to a group of people that are working with our unhoused neighbors, people that literally don't have a roof over their heads, right? And are camping outside and trying to solve a situation, with overcrowded shelters. And when they talk about affordable homes, I can guarantee you they don't mean $300,000 homes, right? But yet they also are saying we need affordable housing. And so neither of them is wrong about what the city needs more of. We need more of both of those things. But so much misunderstanding and disconnect is because we're talking about two different problems. And what I want to do is try to talk about all of it. Yes, we have a housing crisis. Yes, that means we have too many unhoused neighbors. Yes, that means we need to help them have more safe, secure, sanitary places to go. Full stop. Yes, it also means that we have a housing production problem and we are not building enough new homes. And so it is troubling for me when I hear my fellow elected officials talk about housing and wanting, we have a housing crisis, we need more housing, and then voting against things that allow us to build more housing. So that's really frustrating. And I think
are you talking about other mayors, or are you talking about people that you need their help? You want to name some names?
No. I guess what I mean is that it is a dynamic problem with a lot of nuance, and more than we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can make investments as a city into critical water and infrastructure and transportation upgrades like this bond initiative does. We can make those investments, because if we do not make those investments, we're going to end up like other cities to the north of us that have a moratorium on building housing because they don't have adequate infrastructure to do it. So as my friend Mervyn Jebraj, who, if he has not already been on the podcast, he would be a great guest for you. He's at the Center for Business and Economic Research at the Walton College of Business at the University of Arkansas. What a mouthful. But he talks about being able to, if you want to build more housing, you have to start underground first. We can do that in this bond, and also make sure that we are increasing our funding and our outreach to programs that directly work with those individuals that are experiencing homelessness.
So I'm glad we're going to do a deep dive. Let me throw out a couple things, kind of thinking also from a national perspective. So I ran some quick research, and you see some stats of, let's call it around $5 million, what I'll call homes and bigger housing, that there's a gap, and that maybe in 2022, 1.4 million homes were built, but 1.8 million households were formed. People get married, they're having children, they need a house. So in 1 year, you're 400,000 to the bad with the gap. But then, and this is just, some searches I pulled up real quick, it did separately give me the statistic to say it's more like 7 million if you're talking extremely low income.
Right.
And so the internet machines that I use kind of used the same bifurcation that you just used. So at least you're on the same page with them. Let's talk first about, and we'll try to get to both, but let's talk first about the home part. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if the Great Recession, which of course was started with a housing boom, oversupply, and this is what happens with capitalism. If you don't regulate it properly, it can overheat, and so you get too much production. It looks like a lot of people went out of business, and the stats I'm seeing is maybe 1 million workers in that industry said no one's going to pay us, so we're going to go do something else. And whatever it is, wherever they came from or whatever they were doing, they chose to do something else. Is that a big part of the issue, or would you say, no, we've kind of gotten past that 15 years later? Is the Great Recession still a problem today for the housing market?
That is a great question, and I'm not an economist, and so I want to be.
Yeah. Really, the whole thing here is
you want to be an economist.
I want people to call me an economist. I have no training in it.
So I'm going to make what I think is I'm going to give you a little bit of a politician's answer and say probably, right? Probably, there is probably some aspect of that is still lingering. I don't spend, frankly, a lot of time worrying about why,
how we got
here, or worrying about is this a holdover from a recession, or if this is a new problem. I spend a tremendous amount of time focusing on where are we going to go, because we are here. We are in this situation where we don't have the right mix of housing types, and we also don't have the right. It's not just price point. We also don't have the right types of housing. So there are a majority of areas in Fayetteville right now where it is against city ordinance to build a duplex. You cannot do it. So it means we are telling people who own a piece of land, you can't build a home you can't build a structure that would allow for 2 families to live there. If you're going to build here, you have to make it single family. And that's fine and good, and single family homes are great. I live in a single family home. You probably live in a single family home. But why are we making it so difficult for people who don't want that or maybe can't afford that. Why is that so hard? And so those are the type of regulatory things that the city is absolutely in control of that I think we can do to make the market a little bit better for people.
Have you, and I'm sure you're right, since you've been in office, I presume you've been trying to identify these various scenarios. What have you found so far, and have you already produced ordinances to try to attack the problem?
Yes. What I have found so far is I'm chuckling because I am thinking about how I sometimes feel that the most important aspect of my job is going to be doing things that, the old proverb of like you're planting seeds that will, under the shade of, for trees under the shade of which you shall not sit. I mean, I'm butchering it, but that thought, I mean, of how much of what we're doing now, I'm like, man, this is going to be a real gift for the person that's mayor after me, right? Because it is we didn't get here overnight and we're not going to get out of it overnight. I am proud of a lot of what we've done. We've made it easier for prefabricated homes to be able to come on the market. We are working on legislation right now. It's in our long range planning committee trying to figure out what makes sense for manufactured homes. How do you, is there a way in which those make sense in our city? Not how does that, how does that fit into a piece of the puzzle? We have made it significantly easier in terms of our process to get through the permit approvals for people that are building. And then on the low income side of things, Fayetteville's housing authority had been in a real problematic place for a very long time. That had a lot of changes in leadership. They have a lot of properties that are run down that are frankly not fit for people to live in. And housing authorities, I believe, federal housing authorities can be some of those most important tools that we have for low-income individuals. And so we made the first of its kind a contribution to the Housing Authority earlier this year to help settle some outstanding debt that they have so that they can begin to move forward. We have plans in the works now on a partnership of how to rehab and rehabilitate or remedy in some form or fashion some of the places that they own. And we're doubling down on our investments doubling down is probably not the right phrase. We're also just looking at the relationships that we have with the nonprofit organizations that provide direct care and help to unhoused individuals to see how can the city be a better partner. And we also, something I'm excited about that has never been done before in Fayetteville, I don't think it's ever been done in the state, but our understanding it is completely legal, so we certainly don't want to get anybody's heckles raised, and it is that identifying pieces of city-owned land that have been underutilized and making those available and saying, hey, pitch us, give us your proposal. How would you help make more affordable housing on this spot if the cost of land weren't so tremendous of a barrier?
So, are you saying you might potentially cut them a deal?
I think we have to be really careful in the language that we use.
You wouldn't say cut a deal.
We have to consider fair compensation. There are legal requirements that we have to stick to. I think what we are saying is that we are open for business in terms of wanting to partner with you, wanting public-private partnerships to figure out how can we help identify this piece of land pre-entitled to where we can work together to build affordable housing units. So I think that's how I would say it.
Well, one of my theses, if you will, with this podcast is that complicated problems typically have complicated answers. And it sounds like from a government perspective, you're trying to do what you probably would see as the low-hanging fruit, the stuff that just makes a lot of common sense. It's a democracy, so you got to go through a legislative process to do that. My question here is, somebody's got to build the house. And so I'm in the restaurant business and everybody thinks they can start a restaurant. And a lot of people do. I think people know, well, I can't build a house. First off, I don't have a license. There's a lot of capital at stake. I'm sure you or your housing officer are talking to builders.
Yeah.
What are they telling you that they need? And or are they saying, hey, we're bullish. We do want to start building more houses. Or do they give you reasons? No, we don't want to build more houses and it's for XYZ reason. What
I hear is that they do want to build more houses and that Fayetteville needs to make it easier for them to do it. right? So it's one thing to go in and develop a house. It's another to have to navigate through convoluted or sometimes contradictory regulations in our city code. To have to jump through the hoops of talking to 4 different partners to get departments, to get permit approval. And so I think that we can streamline that process, because I do think there are absolutely people that want to build in Fayetteville and want to build more homes. And you said something, Pat, you said complicated problems, of which the housing crisis is, without question, a complicated problem, often have complicated solutions. And that is true, but also I would say that the solution is, there's that difference between simple and complex, like easy and hard. The answer is not difficult. I mean, it's we need to build more of them, right? We don't have enough homes for people to live in. We need to build more of them.
Right.
That is simple.
We have demand, we need supply.
Right. We need supply. But making sure we have the right mix of supply is where that complexity comes into it.
Let's kind of want to segue then, because, and I'll give another thesis of mine. Like I said, I really want to be known as an economist.
I'll start telling people you are.
Just say it, and we'll speak it into existence. But I have a question or a thesis, if you will, that if you're a home builder and you're just looking at your timeline and your use of capital, and somebody comes to you and says, I would like to build a $600,000 home. And then you're like, okay. And you give them a quote. And then somebody else comes in and they're like, I would like to build a $200,000 home. Having built a couple of things, but not really have any expertise in that area, I'm wondering if that home builder is saying, it's not that much faster to build a $200,000 home. I have a thicker profit, maybe not the percentage, but the dollar amount on the $600,000 home is just more profitable. And if that plays into the decision, so that's a thesis, but I also want to give you an opportunity to talk about the people who are never going to live. They can't afford a $300,000 home, but we don't want them unhoused. We don't want them on the streets. Talk to us about those things, and how much have you gotten into that, or where do you want to get into as you proceed through your term as mayor?
I want to see more multifamily units being built in Fayetteville that are not restricted to the student population. And when I say not restricted to the student population, I mean specifically that are not rented exclusively by the bedroom. I want to see more, I'm saying it again, more multifamily, meaning apartments essentially, units built in Fayetteville that are rented where, families or individuals who are not students, who are not interested in renting by the bedroom could live. And I think that's a huge piece of it. And you are right. I am sure that in looking at it, sometimes it's going to be much harder to build an affordable home than it is, a higher priced home. That's why more of them, what we know is that more of them can help drive that cost down. When you have a smaller supply, the price of everything is going to go up, to where if you increase that supply, people can be a little bit more competitive.
Do we need to go up? So
yes. Build vertically?
Yeah.
Yes.
You ever been to Manhattan?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, yes, that is not the, yes, I have. And what I will tell you is that, and no way. Yeah. There's,
but here's where I didn't mean to.
Unless you mean Manhattan, Kansas. Right.
Well, what I really meant was that, some people would hear, especially in the South, New York City, and I would never want to live there. Yeah, but it wasn't always like that. The land is compressed, and so they loved being there for a number of reasons. And so they went up because they couldn't go out.
Right.
And I think in the South particularly, we see a 10-story apartment complex, and we think this is a horrible thing. But if you go to a San Francisco, or some of these cities have been around a long, long, long time, it's just very normal, and it's much more affordable than having a big yard and that sort of thing. And I'm not talking about skyscrapers, but do we need to go up in our building? Yeah,
yes. And I'm talking about, you use the sort of extreme examples. We don't have to go to San Francisco or to New York to talk about that. We can go to Chattanooga. We can go to Madison. We can go to Raleigh, North Carolina. We can go to Des Moines. I mean, we can go to other places and talk about the hype that I'm talking about is like 3 stories, 4 stories. I mean, Fayetteville is uncomfortable with anything more than 2 stories, largely. We really are. And we have to get beyond that. We have to. Well,
as a person who went to school in Fayetteville and who lives in Fayetteville now, I agree with that. And I think, I don't know, it's a mindset change. And I've held back quite a bit, but as we move toward the end of episode 2, I'll give you a little bit of my opinion. I think Fayetteville's an amazing place with a tremendous geography. We've got the flagship university, and when our sports are good, they're really good. And even when they're bad, they're at least entertaining. Like a car wreck can be entertaining. Okay. We have so much to offer, but I have felt over the decades that I've had my relationship with Fayetteville that there have been times where there's people who have this longing for this small town that doesn't bustle and doesn't have a lot of the issues that anyone has when you're growing. That's just not my mentality. I understand people like that, but I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be thinking of like the next best thing. And I don't like sprawl. I've been to Los Angeles and I think it's terrible, but there are ways to do it. And maybe I'll have you now on another episode, because you mentioned places like Chattanooga and Madison. Give me a 60-second snippet of what you're talking about with places, what they've done.
Yeah. So I don't want to say those cities specifically, but I think there are cities that we can point to that are more similar to Fayetteville in size, in population, in demographics, that are all facing what we're facing, that all have, a lot of university towns. I mean, not in the case of Chattanooga, but in other places that are having to grapple with these very same things. And there are lessons that we can learn with how they are building, how they are changing their development codes, how they are changing their city ordinances to encourage development, to build up, to avoid sprawl. But we are unique. We love to think that we are unique, and we are unique and we are awesome, but we are not so singular and unique that there aren't lessons to be learned from other places.
That makes perfect sense. And we'll leave it at that. As we kind of got maybe 2 more minutes left in the podcast, we've talked about a lot of things. I appreciate you being on the podcast. You're my first elected official.
Oh, I feel so privileged.
Absolutely. So what would you like to say to the audience about what you're trying to accomplish? And I'll frame it like this. When I've asked you about housing, I saw your face light up. I could feel the passion. You already have like a lot of good initial answers, but there's probably a lot of stuff that you're saying. There's a lot of stuff I got to go get these great ideas from other mayors and other places. What would you like to leave the audience with? What do you want? You only get 1 term guaranteed as mayor. Right.
Yeah.
What do you want it to be? What impression do you want the people who put the trust in you, what do you want to leave them with after your first term?
I want to leave people with a sense of excitement and hope about Fayetteville's future that can hopefully temper some of the angst that I feel a lot of people in Fayetteville have, that is just rooted in this nostalgia. So Fayetteville, we take our heritage, it seriously. We are, so many of us in Fayetteville are nostalgic for being, a small 30,000 people, 30,000 person college town nestled in the hills. And we are growing, and the die has been cast, and that is not who we are. And I want people to embrace change and look forward to the future with hope, and know that we can still hang on to our values, hang on to what makes us special. We can still be who we are, be the Fayetteville that we love, and grow. And I hope I can leave people with that spirit that it's going to be okay. The change isn't all bad.
Well, I think you've got a really good chance of success. I know how tough that road can be, but I would just encourage you to keep listening to people, but also just leading them and just saying, here's what I've listened, and now here's what I think we need to do. I got to make a decision. And if you'll just trust in me, because since you put your faith in me, I think a lot of good things will happen for Fayetteville in the future.
Thank you so much, Pat. And you're my favorite economist, by the way. But I thought of one more thing. I thought of one more thing I really want to say, but now I know I'm out of time. Can I say one more thing?
Make it quick.
I want Fayetteville to restore people's faith in how government can work. We are living at a time when what is happening nationally is, regardless of what side of the political aisle you are on, you can't look to a lot of places in our government right now for inspiration and for trust. And I want Fayetteville to remind people that, like, this is what democracy that cares about people can look like, and how we function, and how transparent we are, and how seriously we take our work as public servants.
I love it. And I think that's a great way to close. An impassioned Mayor Molly Rawn of the great city of Fayetteville, Arkansas. Folks, thanks for listening this week. That is the POV of POB.